Make a note that Dave Micus is not here. He is going to try to dial in. He's in Pennsylvania. He's buying Christmas trees for his Christmas tree. Mr. Correll?
Jackson, come on up and lead us out, bud. You ready?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, sir. So, just recall we're having a school board meeting Tuesday night, special meeting, so everybody knows, 6 o'clock. I need a motion to approve and adopt the agenda.
So moved. Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any more discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? I heard 6-0. Board report, please.
Welcome to the November edition of the Missouri School Boards Association's Board Report. We begin with a look at efforts to combat the teacher shortage issue in Missouri. In October, the Teacher Recruitment and Retention Blue Ribbon Commission submitted its report to the Missouri State Board of Education. The commission made 9 recommendations for lawmakers to address the educator shortage. The State Board of Education approved the commission's 9 recommendations and pledged to bring the findings to the public and lawmakers. Missouri's teacher shortage is most urgent at the elementary school level, with 1,561 vacancies last year. There were an additional 852 openings for special education teachers, according to the Education Department. Former MSBA president and Blue Springs School District Board President Rhonda Gilstrap was a member of the Blue Ribbon Commission. She explains the process for the recommendations.
The process included many facets. First and foremost, members needed to be educated on the landscape of public education and the current state of the Missouri teacher workforce. We collected data from other neighboring states to see a regional comparison, which included average starting teacher salary, the education wage gap, as well as benefit packages for teachers, for all educators. We also researched the retention rate of new teachers.
The commission has prioritized its recommendations into 3 time frames.
We developed a set of recommendations that were categorized by immediate, short-term priorities, and then long-term priorities. And I think that coming from the commission, the number 1 priority under immediate was to increase the starting teacher salary in state statute and continue funding to support the new teacher baseline salary grant program. Short-term priorities included establishing a fund to support LEAs, which are local education agencies, in providing increased salaries, and an increased support for mental health resources for teachers, school leaders, and staff. And then under long-term priorities, a couple that were included were salary supplements for filling high-need positions, and then as well as offering salary supplements for teachers with national board certification.
Although the recommendations have been submitted, Gilstrap said the work is far from done.
Our boards of education in Missouri are diligently working to find solutions, and we will continue to do so as we strive to strengthen that workforce. Now, our work is not done as far as the commission. The next thing we really need to look at, and I know there's not a school district in the state of Missouri that hasn't come across this, but another committee is formed to look at the culture and climate.
The State Board of Education, in conjunction with the Blue Ribbon Commission, is hosting a series of public engagement meetings in each of Missouri's 8 congressional districts. Check the DESE website for the recommendations made to the State Board, as well as the dates and locations for the public engagement meetings. It won't be long until the Missouri General Assembly convenes for its 2023 regular session in January. Education issues are likely to be the subject of considerable discussion, as is the case most years in the Missouri legislature. MSBA's Director of Governmental Relations, Brant Shields, expects certain issues to come up immediately in the session.
Nothing is really new in education in the policy that the legislature looks at every year. In fact, issues that probably came up, especially that were hot topic issues that didn't pass in the last legislative session, or even the legislative session the year before that, are probably going to come back again. You know, expect to see things talking about charter schools, talking about virtual schools, talking about expansion of vouchers. Those are probably going to be big hot topic issues coming into session this year.
Between now and the start of the session, there are things that board members can do.
You know, board members right now, especially with those legislators who are just newly elected in this November election, get the chance to know those legislators. You don't want your first opportunity talking to them being when it's time for them to take a vote in January, February, or March. Start building that relationship now. Bring them into your schools. Have them know what great things are happening in your districts, because that's going to help you tell your story when it's time to make a difference in the legislative session.
The MSBA Action Center has a new look, but will host the same helpful resources to assist you in being an effective advocate for your public schools and the students you serve. This includes legislative summaries, tracking of committee hearings when the legislature is in session, and calls to action on critical issues. That's it for this month's edition of the MSBA Board Report. Thanks for allowing us to have some time at your board meeting, and thank you for all that you do to ensure all students succeed.
Okay, the next item is most of the Board of Education, I think all 6 of us, attended the annual conference. So this is our time just to kind of do a readout about what we learned and what we think's going forward. So Heidi, I'm going to start with you.
I'm trying to find my notes. Start with someone else. I'm sorry.
Michael.
You know, I thought it was very informative. I sat through quite a few sessions. There's a social media one, I think you said in that one too, which I thought was pretty interesting. Some of it was affirmation of information I already knew, of course, but there certainly was some good things that I think we could glean from. So, you know, I liked it. I think it's always good to kind of get that education and be a much more well-informed board member for sure.
Go ahead, Aaron.
Oh, sorry. The one that I thought was most important, well, first of all, I think we all sat together during the school safety general session, and the principal from Columbine High School spoke, as well as one of the moms from Sandy Hook, and it was absolutely devastating and heartbreaking and hard to hear, but it, you know, gave some hope as far as how far school safety has come since Columbine, but then just kind of always thinking what's next and what do we need to do, and you know, how do you stop a tragedy from happening. And then one of the sessions that I sat in that I really liked was the correlation of mental health and academic success, and the Jefferson County Health Department is working with the school districts in their county to create a website database kind of thing to look at all the resources. So if you think about all of the resources that maybe we're used to referring people to, but some of them may have really long wait lists, and so then that person doesn't get seen right away. So they're working on a resource to be able to identify kiddos that need some help and get them the resources that they need. But one of the things that I liked the most is that on each one of their student badges, this was DeSoto, I believe, they have 2 QR codes. One is I need help, and the other is my friend needs help. And they could fill out a form. That QR code took them to a form, and then it would alert somebody in their building, whether that be a crisis counselor or the building administrator, so that they could get that student and get them the resources that they need, and at least reach out to be able to kind of triage that situation and you know, make sure that it doesn't end up in something tragic. So just some really good stuff. They are trying to, it's called Aspen Network, I believe is what they're tagging it. Yeah. So they are trying to, yeah, Heidi and I sat in that one together, kind of broaden that out and make it to scale for other districts. But I thought it was really neat presentation, and you know, they're really thinking of ways as a community that they can come together to help kids.
I'm just going to tag onto hers because that's the one that I was going to talk about too. I was super impressed with what they were doing and how they were working together. And they're getting all of this funded through grants, and they're wanting to expand it to all of the districts in the state for free, which would be phenomenal. But the other piece of that is not only is it the resource database and then just, you know, where you can get food, transportation, physical health, how to get different insurances. I mean, just everything in one easy spot, but they were also doing preventative measures for risk assessments for kids. Because 1 in 6 adolescents have a mental health issue, about half of them get the help they need, or any sort of help. So having some sort of risk assessment that maybe it's not shared, but it could be, you know, we do the assessment here and we shoot it right to their doctor that they're going to that the next day or something. So they're doing really cool things and testing a lot of different options, and it was super impressive, super impressive. And the other piece of that, I think I mentioned, oh, on the back of a lot of their IDs too, they have the crisis hotline phone number. So pretty cool. I mean, just having a resource database is huge. There are so many resources just in our county that no one knows exist, period, end of story, and it's crazy. So I hope they do it, and I hope they can share it, but they were pretty impressive. Yeah. I think they'll get it done.
Well, I had a lot of notes in my book that I forgot to pick up as I was going out the door, so I'm kind of just going off memory here, but one of the sessions that I attended was on equity, and you have to realize that in education, equity does not only mean a race difference. There's lots of equity, learning equities, and so when you hear that word equity, it's not necessarily a race thing. It's more of learning and just, you know, bringing one child's grades up to another. And so that's going to be a big piece of the, well, it is a piece of MSEP 6. So we're going to be, that was an interesting, very interesting. I went to the legislative updates and saw what didn't pass, saw what we're going to be up against coming up. There's the budget. You know, they're going to say they're still fully funding education, but they're going to take the cuts out of transportation. So it looks like they're fully funding the formula, but they're actually taking it out of our transportation budget, which hits us very hard. Social, they're coming up in this next session. They're expecting a lot of bills on social issues, curriculum, parent rights, parent bill of rights, and of course, in light of what happened in St. Louis, a lot of school safety things coming up. I went to one on communication and engagement with our patrons. I got some good information there from Springfield schools on what they're doing, and we're forming a committee, so we're working on that right now, so that I can bring that all back to our district. And I sat on the Missouri School Board Executive Board, so I was lucky to get to have lunch with the State Board of Education and sit down with them and have a meal and talk one-on-one with several of them and about the things they're dealing with, and that was very enlightening too, so I enjoyed that. And of course, like you all said, that general session with the Columbine, you know, that was just, you know, it brought tears to your eyes. No one could sit there and not have tears in their eyes at all. And other general sessions were all very good too. I did attend the banquet on Saturday night, and the speaker was Jackie Joyner-Kersey. She had a really good message about students, and you can be anything you want to be. So.
I went to the legislative and policies also, so I won't repeat what Mary said, but one of the things that I thought was really scary there was with the tax cut that is coming or proposed, that'll cost like $1 billion a year, and of course some of that money is going to come out of education. Another one I went to was really helpful. It was kind of about legal and labor issues related to construction. So that helped me figure out some good questions to ask as we're going forward with our big construction process. Another one was about school nursing. Since I'm a nurse, I always try to go to those, and found out some things that I'll look forward to sharing with Nurse Kelly.
And I attended the legal and the policy updates, and I won't repeat that. But the one I went to that I thought was, and it's on my phone here, that's why I'm looking at it. But the difference between MSIP 5, which is how we're judged now, versus MSIP 6. And one of the things that you see in the difference is the word, for MSIP 6, is the word continuous. So it permeates throughout how we're going to be judged going forward. So for instance, like achievement status, like in MSIP 5, it's the Math Performance Index, or MPI. You know, basically it's a point in time, versus MSIP 6, it's more of a continuous MPI. So it's more on how you're doing to improve versus a point in time. The other thing, so you see those words, and I correlate that to what we're working with Doug Smith and the evidence-based learning, because evidence-based learning is more of like a continuous improvement type of thing. And then also you're going to see, because of MSIP 6, we're going to have to redo our comprehensive school improvement program, and so that's going to be coming up next year. And the other thing I think that's the biggest thing that's going to impact us as a district is high school assessment. And I'm going to use algebra as an example, and he'll correct me if I'm wrong. But today, if the kid takes Algebra 1 in 8th grade, that child has the ability to take the end of course exam anytime between now and before he or she graduates. Now, if that child takes Algebra 1 in 8th grade, that child has to do the end of course exam at the time he or she earned that credit. So what that's going to do to us is, do we want our 8th graders taking end of course exams because of taking Algebra 1 in 8th grade, or how's that going to mess with our curriculum and stuff like that? Because obviously a lot of times they take Algebra 2, and then at that point, then they take that end of course exam. So I think that's something that Doug's going to have to, and Matt are going to have to come to grips with, and see how they're going to modify our curriculum and how the kids take math. And that's just an example of one of them. But I think that, so as you listen to some of this stuff, just think about MSIP 6, and that's how we're going to be judged going forward. And that's the biggest thing other than what they said, that's what I concentrated on as I went, because I knew it was going to affect us next year. So, Michael, did you go?
Yeah, I did want to mention one thing though, because you mentioned equity, Mary. So I went and I sat at the State Board of Education meeting, and they talked about the foundation fund, which of course is how school districts get funded. And we all know that, again, equity isn't necessarily race, ethnicity, it's about funding. So if you're in Missouri is a predominantly rural state, so in those rural areas where there's not a large tax base, the schools have to fund off of that. So we're looking at ways that we can make that much more equitable, to where those smaller rural districts can have those same opportunities as the larger, Ladues, the Claytons, that have a plethora of tax entities where smaller schools don't have that. So I like that they're looking at that from that. I'm sure that's probably a long ways on path, but re-examining the foundation for it to see what really makes sense, so that way every child has the same opportunity, regardless of the tax base of that community. So I thought that was interesting. So I'm glad you said it, because I'm just trying to remember.
Anything else? Okay. Did anybody sign up for public comments?
No, sir.
Okay. So now we'll turn it over to Dr. Berger, and he can talk about this presentation.
I'm, throwing that right there to Mr. Crow, and he's up.
There you go. I am thrilled to be able to brag on West Elementary tonight. We've got some students here that are going to talk about our clubs. But before we do, we have a volunteer award to give out to Mrs. Lisa Schrader. She is the mother of one of our teachers at West Elementary. She's Mrs. Schrader's mom. Come on up, Lisa. So I found out that Ms. Schrader donated, her and her company donated for several students to go to 5th grade camp this year. So that got me talking to Miss Nancy Hale, and I found out that this has been happening for multiple years. So I thought, you know what, you need to be recognized for this. So we appreciate it. And also, your sister, correct? Her sister, Karen, Weebrock, also has been contributing over the years, her and her company. So we're going to send a couple certificates home with her so that she can hang it up in her office and her company. So Lisa, thank you so much. Appreciate it. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, there you go. Thank you very much.
Support you every so, you know.
Yeah. She raised a good one. Miss Raymond, she's something else too. Yeah, thank you, Lisa. Thank you for coming out.
Thank you.
Okay, so now we're going to move on, and so I'm the new principal at West. My name's Matthew Crow, if I haven't introduced myself to you before. And when I got to West, one of the things that impressed me the most was their clubs. They have so many clubs and so many kids that go to all these clubs. So, Amy, if you don't mind going to the next slide. So I don't have every club listed on here, but I have quite a few of them. So we have the Read, Write, Run Club. 47 kids are in that club. He raised his hand, so he must be in there too. And Read, Write, Run is, help me out, Ms. Backus, if I'm wrong here, it's 26 good deeds, 26 miles, and 26 books read. Books read. That's how that club works. We got 47 kids in there. Basketball club is on Friday mornings. At 7:15, we got 32 kids currently enrolled in there. Kindness Club is a club we're going to talk about here in a bit. We've got 46 students in Kindness Club, and Ms. Feisey is going to tell us about that. Lego Club is on Tuesday afternoons. We've got 25 kids in there right now. Rubik's Cube Club, which we're going to talk about tonight, has 48 students.
Wow.
Math and Puzzle Club that Ms. Backus, our assistant principal, actually heads up, has 29 students. One second. And so what we're going to do now is we're going to talk about 3 of these clubs specifically. The first one we're going to talk about is Rubik's Cube Club. I've got 3 young men, 2 4th graders and a 5th grader here to talk about that. We got a little bit of we're going to have a little fun here with this solved Rubik's Cube in a second. It's going to be fun for everybody but Mr. Jones over there. Kale, Gail, and Isaiah, come on up, fellas. So what we're going to do is right now we're going to Gail's going to give this solved Rubik's Cube to Mr. Jones over there. Mr. Jones, you have about 30 seconds to try to scribble that up as much as you can.
I got to remember what I do.
No, you don't. You actually don't. Yeah, wait till you see
Oh, okay, I got it.
Yeah. And while he's doing that, we're going to have these 3 young men. You're going to stand right here, fellas. We're going to talk to the Board of Education right here, facing them. That's who we're here to talk to. Kale, you go ahead and go first. They're going to talk about their favorite thing about their club, how the club helps them be a better student, and then also which one of the 3 core values at West that the club best supports. So, Kale, take it away, buddy.
My favorite thing about Rubik's Cube Club is that it gives me some time after school to have a good time and not jump right on my Nintendo Switch. It helps me grow as a student by using perseverance I learn in the club, solve difficult problems in class. For example, say if you have 2,000 divided by 8. Nobody knows what that means. But if you persevere, you'll get there. My favorite thing about Rubik's Cube Club is not just trying to get the 3x3 cube, but trying to challenging myself and get more Rubik's Cubes, like 4x4 and a 5x5. I think it really helps you improve in my memory and problem-solving skills. Of the 3 core values at West, this club definitely helps you learn how to persevere. If you're solving a really hard cube, it takes a lot of effort to finally solve it.
My favorite part about Rubik's Cube Club is how we talk to each other and share strategies while we're trying to solve our cubes. It really helps us connect and get to know each other better. It also helps us with persevering, which is one of our core values at West. It does this by reminding us to keep trying even when we get frustrated. Sometimes It may take a while, but then we stick to it, we eventually figure it out. This also helps me in class when I have a tough problem to solve.
I had to show everybody this. This is so impressive. This guy, watch this. So Mr. Jones scrambled it up, and I'm going to bet under 60 seconds here. Gail, go for it. I got to pump Austin's tires on that. That's the longest it's taken you, hasn't it? I don't know what you did over there, but good job, Gil. I started to show him the crow method of solving a Rubik's Cube, where you fill the stickers on. Gil, good job, buddy. All right, so now next, Ms. Newcomb, if you don't mind switching the slide, we're going to have Jackson Beatty come up, and he's going to talk a little bit about the Math and Puzzle Club, which, by the way, just happens to be run by our assistant principal, Ms. Backus, in the back of the room there. And Jackson's also going to talk to you about what he likes about the club, how it helps him be a better student, and also which one of our core values it best supports. So go ahead, Jackson.
My favorite thing about Math Puzzle Club is solving challenging puzzles and also larger puzzles. Math Puzzle Club helps me in school by teaching me different ways to solve problems. The West core value that Math Puzzle Club supports is definitely perseverance. Sometimes the puzzles and problems are tricky, so you have to stick with it until you solve it.
Our last speaker tonight is another third grader, Miss Adeline Feisey. She's going to talk about West Elementary's Kindness Club. All right, Addie, it's all you.
My favorite thing about Kindness Club is learning about all the ways that we can be kind to one another. A few ways we have learned to be kind to each other have been inspirational messages for the vets on our sidewalk last Friday, kind messages on color leaves and placed all around the building. Kindness Club has helped me become a better student by reminding me why it's so important to make sure that we are all kind and docile as we can. Kindness Club best supports the West core value of empathy by allowing us to consider other people's feelings and putting ourselves in their shoes.
So that's our last student speaker, but it would be silly of me not to recognize the teachers in this process too. They stay extra. They provide structure for the kids. It's not just a free-for-all, that they prepare actual structures and themed lessons and themed activities. And they go the extra mile to make sure the kids have this extracurricular opportunity. So, and I know a lot of them are listening right now, so I really think we should give them a hand too. There is a few pictures here of Kindness Club. This is some pictures of them writing their messages on the sidewalk leading up to Veterans Day. They wrote some messages to vets. Sometimes they just do it randomly during Kindness Club. They'll just go write some nice messages on the sidewalk. So everybody that shows up to school, that's the first thing they see when they get there. Go ahead, Ms. Newcomb. Here's a little bit of the Read, Write, Run. Club started in 2017. Total 62 students combined East, West, and the middle school. And last year, 77 schools participated, and 480 area kids ran in the marathon. And I believe almost 60 of our kids ran in the marathon last year. So that's another amazing club. And then before we end, we're going to start a new club in a couple of weeks. Some teachers just submitted it called Mindfulness Monday, where some kiddos get together and they just kind of sit and relax and talk about, you know, healthy stress, toxic stress, and ways to deal with the everyday grind. So, any questions from anybody, board members, about our clubs?
Mr. Rubik's Cube, sorry, Gage.
Are you red in the red shirt there?
Yeah. Gail. Had you done Rubik's Cubes before you started in the club?
Yes.
Yeah? Okay, very impressive. I'm with Mr. Crow's strategy on solving it. Yeah. No, Mr. Veggie, what is your favorite puzzle?
I like the magic puzzle. I was at last. I did yesterday.
I have a question, but this is my favorite part of the board meeting. It's just, and it's just such a highlight. I really appreciate the opportunity.
That's why we're here.
Yeah, they worked hard. We practiced, what, guys, 4 or 5 times this week? I pulled them in. I pulled them in once a couple weeks ago and said, all right, we're gonna pick it up a little bit this week.
You guys did a great job.
We came in and, yeah, see, you guys did a great job. So,
appreciate it.
Thank you for the opportunity to talk a little bit about West tonight. And if you guys have any questions about anything you saw, let me know. Okay?
Thank you.
Hey, it's Mr. Veggie's birthday.
Oh!
Big Waffle House dinner after that.
That was not what I was going to anticipate. You can wear a tie. Maybe I've been I just didn't know that you guys would want more. Okay. That was really awesome.
You're good.
We loved it. Great.
I didn't know you did one.
This is the longest.
Great job, Mrs. Spivey.
Yeah. Thanks for coming out, folks.
I'll see you at school
I
tomorrow.
will see you tomorrow. Thank you.
Busy, busy.
Always.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It's so good. All right. How are you?
I was like, oh, I know.
Mr. Crow? Mr. Crow?
Hey, Veronica, shut the door, Veronica, when you come in. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, next item on the agenda, by the way, that was very good. I was impressed with how those kids read very well. Yeah, they did a very good job reading. Next item on the agenda is the CSIP report. Does anybody have any additional questions regarding the report?
No, but I want to comment that I really like the celebration. I really like to read their celebrations.
Attendance? I was not, it's still an issue?
Yep. Still going to be a battle. And we're starting to have a little more conversation, hoping that we're coming out of COVID to a little more normalcy. Cabinet meeting, we spoke a little bit of it in IL, if I'm not mistaken, or was that just a mini meeting between the high school? Matt, I remember we talked about that, I know, but we're starting to get some ideas put together. So
How about the RSV that we keep hearing about? We've seen a lot of that.
Kelly was in our nuts and bolts meeting, and she is completely inundated in various RSV. She went through the gamut of contagious things that are out there right now. So yeah, that's playing a toll, taking its toll too.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
There's a new swab, because I had it, that does COVID, RSV, flu A, and flu B, and you can read it in an hour.
Oh, wow, okay.
Yeah, so that will be helpful.
That would be okay.
We have a lot of flu. We have a lot of kids with the flu.
Yeah.
I heard it's going to be worse this year.
It's going to be bad this year.
Okay. Anything else anybody want to talk about? Okay, next item on the agenda is Wright City High School and East Elementary addition bid considerations. So this is going to be a long conversation, so we'll just take it easy, take it slow, and take it what we need to do. So
And Amy's going to pull. We're going to start, and just as Mr. Jones mentioned, there we'll kind of be pretty methodical through here. We're going to start with a Stiefel update and really an opportunity to ask questions. Now this will be Joe pinch hitting for Brent. Actually, I say pinch hitting. They are partners on our account. Both of them very knowledgeable. So Joe is actually at another board meeting, or at least about to be at a board meeting. But we're going to get him for a window here, so we're going to use that opportunity now. But I'm going to set the table for Joe coming into this and tell you that we've sent a lot of information to you, and so we can, like I said, ask questions here with Joe as they come up, and then we'll have Art next who will do a presentation, and we can ask questions in that kind of vein. But we've identified a gap after running numbers of about $10 million if you took all projects. Now I want to be clear, that's all projects in package 1 and package 2. Not just in package 1, because remember...
Dr. Berger's given his introduction, but we just wanted to get you on the line.
Volume up, maybe. Thanks for being here, Joe, and I'm going to finish this up and then kind of set the table and then provide an opportunity for the board to ask you questions, okay? So, the $10 million gap is package 1 and package 2. Package 1 is the only thing that's been out for bid. Package 2 is the preschool and the renovation of the high school for the admin offices to move up there. So we have to remember that, you got to keep coming back to that, but we've got this, a couple $1 million hanging out there that we still have to account for. So when we talked about, and I think what Joe's going to kind of present, and you've got a cash flow analysis that he's provided in your packet, but we talked about anticipating, even when we received bids Thursday, that was going to be in the ballpark of about $10 million, and that's why Brent directed his conversation to that. I think Stiefel can go get us $10 million. It just may be out of your comfort zone of what you're wanting to do when you think that at some point, if projections aren't met, we still have the money to do it, but it has to come out of operations. Now we're in a great position because we have operational balances, but the concern there is you can't keep digging into operations, right? So we have to meet the mark of our Board of Education and our community for that matter on how aggressive we want to be with that. And really when you got, if you're saying aggressive is one end of the spectrum and conservative is on the other end, I sense that when we're talking about protecting operational dollars, which by the way, as the board is fully aware, operational dollars, we're talking about the classroom. Probably the two things that come to my mind are the classroom and teacher retention and recruitment. And since I've had boots on the ground here in my time at Wright City, I've had my orders from the board. Teacher retention, teacher recruitment, impact test scores, right? So when we're talking about that, we got to stay to the more conservative side, I feel. And so that we talked about 10 million, yeah, we can do it. And Joe will talk a little bit about that maybe. But the central presentation for tonight is on 3.2 million. That still keeps us conservative. So if you're doing the math, if we take 10 million, say, and we're rounding there, if we can put a dent, a $3 million dent in that with additional borrowing, we're down to 7 million, and that's helpful. But it still doesn't get us there, right? Mm-hmm. And then we still have this unknown of a public, some corporate interest that might help subsidize. And that's, of course, what prompted the meeting to Tuesday, and I hope that we have a number. And I hope to have a number by then, but if we don't, we've got to go. We've got to move on, with the funding gap identified in 7 million. So thanks for letting me kind of get that spit out. Joe, at this point, do you have anything to add, or is it just, do you want to go over the cash flow analysis a little bit, or do you want to just take questions from the board, or what would you like to do?
I'll start, Chris, and then I'll take some questions if that's okay.
Or maybe it's okay.
That's okay.
That'd be great, Joe. Take off.
Yeah, so you got in front of you cash flow looking just like what Dr. Berger was talking about. Essentially, we have...
Joe, pause for just a minute. Joe, we'll put that up on the board if you want to put that. Can you put it up from executive? Oh, I'm sorry. Well, we won't have it up on the board, but let the board members pull that up. They're pulling it up off the board docs. I email it to you. Austin's got it under that same agenda item. Yeah, I know we had the executive summary up early, but that is right.
Okay. This one?
Nope.
This one?
Yes.
Which one?
Cash flow.
Got it.
Yeah, I retitled it, Joe. Sorry. Whenever I stuck it in there, so
You want the summary up?
cash flow. Yeah. Thank you. Sorry. Okay, Joe, we actually will have it up on the board too, so we can do that. We're ready now.
Great. So, you've got in front of you a scenario just looking at how we can get to that. I think the total number is 66 million. If we needed to, and do that additional 5 or 6 million. The issue with that is that, and I don't know, I apologize, I can't see what's in front of you, but as Dr. Berger said, within the original plan, we're still good to go in terms of the financing, and actually because of some additional premium we were able to get, I think we'll be a little bit ahead of where we were under the original scenario. There are some other scenarios that you have in front of you, but as Dr. Berger mentioned, we've already come up off of conservative a little bit to try to stretch, and get that additional 5 or 6 if you were to want to get that, knowing that on the back end of that, there's going to be, you'll have to do something at some point, whether it's a refinancing or a buying back of that lease debt through GO to help your operational cash flows with that 21 cents. But we did do a slight restructuring of the existing lease that we just completed up front to make sure that if you did that amount, that larger amount, you under the lower growth assumptions, back to the original kind of, hey, this is what we think might happen from an AV perspective conservatively, that gets you to that position without having to hopefully run any surpluses or dig into reserves to pay the debt side of things. And that's, folks, really where we're at. On the debt side of things, there may be a couple other things we could do, like issuing 0% coupons, which are called capital appreciation bonds, where you essentially pay additional interest, but you don't pay it up front. You pay it in one giant payment at the back end, and some other things if you're really wanting us to stretch and go and pull. But I think at this point, for what your growth is allowing and for where, interest rates are at, and within the plan that we structured, I think, going from 54, 55 up to 64, 65, 66 is pretty good, but I know that doesn't make you all sleep any better at night based on where these bids have come in. But if you all wanted to have a discussion on, what you would need to get up to that higher level, or what, we did in terms of sort of restructuring some of your existing debt to be able to make sure we got that little bit higher amount without happen to rely on a bunch of additional growth early on. Happy to talk about that, but this is where we're at. I think 64 to 66 million is probably the high end of what we feel comfortable based, given the cash position of the district, the interest that you anticipate earning on those funds already on deposit, as well as trying to stretch and issue this lease as late as we possibly can. To get the remainder of your money closer to the end of the construction cycle. Now, I tell you, and I know this, again, I know you all have a pretty short time frame here, but we could work with, some folks to get a drawdown schedule and see if there's any way we could be more aggressive, if we could, have some time to work with the investment company that you're working with, PFM, through MOSTIP, and try to get a better idea. We might, the numbers might change, but if they change, it's going to be pretty slightly, folks. I mean, it might be a little better, but, that's where we are. I wish I had great news, but, that is where we are at in terms of what we can do with the options that you have laid out in front of you, which is the second part of this lease.
Joe, then I'm going to try to sum some of that, and then I think the board will be able to have questions, or those that do. So what we're saying is the 3.2, we're still in the conservative lane, and that's, might be an easier decision. Anything outside of that, we can get a financial plan together, but anything outside the 3.2, there would be a possibility of some point of subsidizing that debt with operations, which, by the way, I'll say, many school districts do that completely. The lease purchase debt that they go out on is not like us, where we have a revenue source of 21 cents from last April. They just have extra operational dollars that they can allocate to that. But for us, if we want to maximize our operational dollars to keep on doing what we want, keep on doing what we need to do for teacher recruitment and retention, protecting the classroom, the $3.2 million is probably the lane we're in. But Joe would take feedback if you want to get more aggressive on that, and they can bring, that more aggressive plan together. Joe, does that kind of summarize what you're saying?
Yeah, that's perfect, Dr. Berger. That's right. I mean, we had this same discussion with Orchard Farm. You guys are about a 12-month, in arrears of where they're at, and they chose to go the more aggressive route, and we put together a financing to try to get as much as we could. And certainly, if that's something you want to look at, we can. But as Dr. Berger said, at some point, this will have a kind of a sort of cliff that you'll have to prepare for in terms of however you fund that, whatever we do. It won't be the full plan. The current levy will not fully fund all of that without significant growth or some sort of restructuring or repurchasing of the lease debt.
Okay, Mr. Jones, I'm going to add one more thing, and then let's let the board have some questions, or Joe and I will go back and forth like Brittany and I do. And the thing to remember about this lease purchase debt, if the board got comfortable with the $3.2 million to get that funding gap down to $7 million, that could be done, but that does not restrict you from considering plans in the future. Maybe as soon as next July. Now, I don't want to paint that too rosy. I'm not suggesting that all of a sudden we're going to get AV changes, that Joe and Brent are going to be able to bring us a plan that we're going to be able to get everything in July. But every July you're looking at that, and the board can look and see where we're at. Okay, we are having AV outpace that. That may be a discussion the following spring, the following year, and it's just a look at it year to year to see when those opportunities are there. So the 3.2, we won't even, if the board were to be receptive to that, we won't even go get that money yet. We'll go get it when we need it. It's possible it'd be something less than 3.2. But 3.2, authorized by the board, would give us some cushion. I think we're going to use it all. And depending on what bid packages the board took, it may not be that much. But I guess I'm being a little wordy on that, just to say that it's not like a decision tonight or a decision Tuesday and then it's off the table. You can always revisit it. It's just that you're not going to have any new information until you get new assessed values, which is a reassessment year for Warren County after July. We get those, set that tax rate in August, and we'll have those new values by then. So, Joe, if you could hold on, we'll get a little feedback from them, and then maybe that will get us more focused in our conversation.
So I'll start, and we'll work our way down the aisle here. So, Joe, the question, can you hear me okay?
I think so, yes. I'm hearing you pretty good.
All right, thank you. So the question I have is, what changed from Tuesday night to tonight, where Brent indicated that we could be a little bit more aggressive to get the $5 million? Was the assessed? What was the assumptions that you all put together that were different from Tuesday night than tonight?
So the change was that we took debt that is already existing from the lease we just completed, and we had our analysts actually shift some of that in the short term out, because the issue really is that with interest rates where they are right now, you know, the plan is, you know, a little bit tighter than what, you know, we had originally had hoped for, but we had planned to do that. So to get the original amount that we spoke about. Getting the higher amount that Brent was resistant to at the board meeting on Tuesday night was assuming that we did nothing with your existing debt. And so to do something with your existing debt, to make a little bit of room up front, to get that additional dollars, means a couple things. And the first thing it means is you have to do what's referred to as a taxable refunding of non-callable debt. So there is a cost that you have to pay. And again, Orchard Farm went that route in terms of you owe all the principal and interest on the lease debt up front. Regardless of what you do with it from a refinancing standpoint. So when we go in and refinance that, you're kind of the old robbing Peter to pay Paul sort of a statement. We've got some more room on the long end of this thing, we think, based on how you're going to grow. So if we take some of that early debt and that we've already issued, that's already in place, we're already making payments on, and we do what we call a scoop and chunk, or cull out portions of that to make room for those additional interest payments, then we at least are getting to where it's not where you're dipping into your operational reserves to make your lease payments in the first 5, 7, 10 years. It's more on the long end of this thing, 15, 20, 25 years on down the road. So it gives you time to have the payments where you want them to be and where the plan was, even with the additional dollars. But you got to know that then something's going to have to give. Either you're going to have to grow out of it at some point between now and the next 10, 12 years, in terms of you're going to have your AV growth be in excess of what we're assuming, or you're going to have to potentially do some sort of restructuring of your debt again. The issue is we can only go out 25 years. I mean, if we could go out 35 years, like in a lot of other states, we would have a few more options in front of us. But when we're trying to keep this within the 25-year time frame, there's only so many tools we have. So essentially, we're kind of digging deep into our abilities here and trying to make sure we're doing whatever we can to get you as much as you can get. We want to do that under full disclosure and make sure that you know that if we're doing that, there are some other tumblers that will have to fall in the future, just so we're all clear on where we're at. If we do start doing some of this scoop and chunk of existing debt to make room for greater, borrowing up front.
Okay, one last question and I'll yield. What AV growth did you assume in these new numbers?
We all we have built in is we went back, so we looked at two things, I guess I should say. We looked at some additional growth, and to be honest with you, the additional growth was it happened so quickly and at such a high level, it's just not a realistic deal. It would be nice if we could absorb that more over time, but again, we've got to pay interest on this regardless. So that one, I think, required 17% growth, and then 15% growth, and then 12% growth or something in order to get those additional dollars, and just do a normal, standard, current interest bond structure. The other scenario where we looked at doing the scoop and chunk, we went back to our original growth assumptions, which are, we know that we've had 15% growth in terms of CPI over the last 2 years, which will be the last 2 reassessment cycles. I mean, unless something happens over the last month where we just actually tank, as the assessor starts to make those determinations, calendar year 21 and calendar year 22, which are part of the reassessment cycle, we will have seen 15% growth in CPI over those 2 years. So we get to a position where, you know, we do feel comfortable having some significant growth built into the upcoming year because of that. Now, you'll be capped at 5% growth in existing reassessment. So we didn't go much above 10%, which would be around where your new construction numbers are set. So we've got about 5% new construction, 5% reassessment growth. Anything above that, you know, again, we'd love to tell you that that's going to get you there, but if it's not new construction, if it's reassessment, it's going to be, we're not going to be able to recapture that revenue. So we went back to something more, I think it's 10.5, and then we went to 3.5 a year. So we basically said, hey, you've got some good economic development going on. You know, we're going to plan for a couple of years more increases in your assessment. But then the rest of that is going to be really that, hey, we've got, you know, 3.5%. It's hopefully just about where CPI is going to sit once we can get inflation slowed down. So we're not planning for any new growth there. But again, you know, by our conservative nature, we're still going to want to scoop and chunk that debt and move it out. And make sure that you've got, you know, significant surpluses. Really, I think we narrowed it down to $5,000 or $7,000, but we could do a little bit better and make sure that there's some surpluses built in, so that if you don't grow at that pace, you still won't have to rely on those operational dollars.
Thank you. Before we continue, I neglected to say that David Micas joined us about 6:30. Pardon me?
It was right after the pledge.
Okay, right after the pledge. Okay, so David joined us pretty early. Dave, have you been hearing all this?
I have. He was just a little hard to hear, but I caught the gist of most everything he said.
All right, do you have any questions before we move on?
Not at this time, no.
Okay, Alice?
So I'm a little confused. If we did just the 3.2 million, would that be enough to complete the first phase of the project, and then the possibility of waiting for the second phase for a number of years?
Let me jump in there because I think it's probably more for me.
Okay.
You're still going, if you do the, you got a $10 million gap, and so let's say 3.2, but 3, you're still going to have a $7 million gap, and then it just comes on down to alternates. You know, if you did just the low bid and the third alternate, you got money. You know, you got a lot of room.
Yeah.
Maybe not even need to borrow the 3.2. If you wind up doing the kind of comparable cost a little bit, maybe the more, or if I was looking into it to read it, I think the board will gravitate to either base bid and alternate 2, which is the gymnasium, or you might, and it may go a different direction, the second option may be base bid and alternate 1 and 3. That's kind of what you're going to be able to, what I believe the board's going to be able to afford.
Okay.
But that you would need the 3.2 to get you there
and
on that one.
What about the money for the second phase?
All of that considers money having for the second phase, because that's a great point that I have not emphasized enough. All along, we said all along that Proposition 2025 could subsidize the core projects. So Proposition 2025 was always the performance facilities, you know. So just because Package 2 isn't the performance facilities, they're still priority. So you can't go get all 3 alternates, because then you don't have money for that second package. The second package is the preschool, which was a high priority for the board, I believe, if that priority hasn't changed. So at least from all of what I have communicated to you, I've never thought there was an option to keep the preschool before any of the 3 alternates.
Okay,
the alternates were always identified because we always knew, we've known for a long time, there was a chance. I mean, we had districts in our region that were 90%, their bids were 90% over projections. We've had districts more recently that were 40% over projections. I think we did some things to mitigate that to get it down to just over 10%. So I think our mitigation efforts helped, but they didn't hit still. I mean, it's pretty hard to hit perfectly. But that's why you do alternates. That's why alternates are always put in the bid. was because if you don't have enough resource for everything you have, it's already, you know, you've got those pieces to carve out. So thank you for hearing all that, but you've always had those three, and I know the board knows that, three decisions, you know, that you might have to make.
Thanks, that helps.
That's a great point.
Anything else?
No.
Mary?
Not right now.
Heidi?
I'm with Mary. I may have questions later.
Yeah.
Michael?
My question is what Alice asked, so thank you for that, Alice.
And Aaron?
So I think mine is kind of along yours, Austin, but I just want to get it straight in my mind. So Joe, on Tuesday, we said that an additional $10 million would cost us about $750,000 in debt service. Is that?
Yeah, in debt, yeah.
Okay.
Debt service not being Fund 3, but yes, in lease purchase.
Okay,
You're
okay.
right.
So it's gonna cost us $750,000. And what we're saying, our new projections are that we probably can't afford that. Correct-ish?
That is correct, and I'll ask Joe to affirm that, because the question was directed to him, but that is correct, not without the potential of having to subsidize that payment.
And just keeping things in this fund, not
That's
touching
right.
Fund 1.
That's right.
Okay.
That's right. Fund
Yeah.
1, you're right.
I wanna talk about
Fund 1 and 2 is operations.
Yeah, I wanna
And
talk about
if the board is pretty set on not touching that, the Stiefel nor I are recommending the $10 million option.
Okay.
You know, in a sense, you'd say, and I'm not, it's a bad analogy, but you've handcuffed us a little bit there, but I understand why.
Yeah.
You guys have let me know that since I've been here, is we're going to protect the classroom and teacher recruitment and retention. So I've handcuffed Brent a little bit and Joe in that you can't touch that money.
Okay, thank you.
I think that's it for Joe.
Oh, can I have another
sure.
question? Sorry.
Sure, and I need to add one thing.
Okay, so the 2023, our growth rate was 9.8%. That's true captured, or that's what we're
Well,
anticipating?
I think Veronica's in the room now. She'd say times 0.95 collection rate, but yes, 9.8 is good.
Okay, and then 2024 is best guesstimate?
Well, it's going to be a reassessment year. You know, conventional wisdom would tell you it's going to be better because it's a reassessment year, but it's all a crystal ball.
Okay, so in the crystal ball, I just want to clarify what's in the crystal ball.
Okay.
So in the crystal ball is, it's a very loud exhale. So in the crystal ball is new residential growth, an average of, or is Forestell project in these projections?
Great question. I'm going to try to answer this, and Joe may clean it up too, but there's a piece of this I want to clarify, and that's what I was going to close with is, remember whenever I talked earlier about being able to reconsider things, the other thing that we've done that was, you know, I feel like I being neglectful because I should have mentioned that early. None of our projections, none of Stiefel's projections put AFG online. So in the future, you know, their first taxing year, I confirm this is anticipated to be 2024. You know, our project's getting done, you know, whatever the board approves, and then you're going to have potentially, if all that plans out, but we just didn't feel like we could use AFG in any of the projections.
And
so,
the reason I ask is because there's that little bump, and I just wanted to kind of make sure that I knew what we were looking at. And I know you said that we would have some more information on that.
Well, certainly they ran that. I believe that to be right. And Joe, is that correct?
Yeah, that does not take into account that the new development there. Really, what it takes into account is all of the growth we saw in the housing market in the spring of 2021 when things went crazy. That, believe it or not, was not reflected on your tax year 22 AD. So this AD that you have, it is up as a result of two things: new construction And now I'm talking about your current year. It's up because of new construction, and it's up because of the microchip and logistics issues we're having, supply chain issues we're having related to used cars going up in value. So a lot of that was personal property increase that is simply the result of, you know, your car actually appreciating in value because you can't get a hold of new cars, essentially. What we're planning for next year is 10% growth, but again, that is short of what we've actually seen in growth in CPI. So in other words, when we say reassessment, that means the assessor has supposedly been spending 21 and 22 determining where the values are of businesses and homes. And we've got, you know, home values have spiked. We've got businesses who are, you know, according to our sales tax revenues across the state, continue to have record years. And, you know, all of that points to assessments being up, plus additional homes going into your community, plus other development going on in the community. You know, again, we're trying to make sure we're at least giving you something accurate, because if we put, you know, 3% there, I think, you know, we are allowed to get at least 5% from reassessment growth, and I don't think the assessor would be doing their job if they did anything less than 10 or 12% growth. But again, we're trying to be conservative there and back some of those off, but still give you a decent idea of what we think your growth is going to be. Now, as an example, we've got a community very similar to you all called Smithville on the Kansas City side of the state that's, probably 45, 50 miles north of the city. So not all that different than you all. Bedroom community, their assessor has indicated to them that they're going to see somewhere between 18 and 22% growth is their preliminary number. Now, that's the Clay County assessor. That's not the Warren County assessor. You know, there's a lot of factors there, but, you know, I think we are going to see some significant growth this upcoming year because of the inflation we're seeing and because of the development you're seeing in your community. Beyond that, you know, that's a different story altogether.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
And we'll let you close out.
Well, I would just be redundant. Yeah, so just be mindful that you can, you know, whatever the board decides, be it Tuesday night or sometime in the, you know, you probably need to consider the 3.2 at that time in conjunction with what alternates that the board will consider. And then the book isn't closed on it. You can visit that soon. If everything maps out to what, you know, is just short of one in the hand, so to speak, AFG goes online in 2024, and you've got, you know, one of the most unique opportunities in the state to have new revenue, to just decide where your priorities are again at that time. And again, that's just our project finishing up, whatever the board chooses to do Tuesday. Yeah.
Can I have another question?
No.
Come on. Okay, again, just to clarify, on Tuesday, we said total proceeds from the bond and the lease levy, whatever,
yep,
was between 63 and 64 million. So we're tacking on, so I just want to know what is going to be in the bank. So we're tacking on 3.2 to that number, or 3.2 includes that number, or is included in that number?
I'm a little lost on that, but I'll look real quick here, and Joe may have been tracking on that.
I think the total number we feel that you can get to comfortably is, it looks like I may be getting a speeding ticket here.
Stay on the line. Stay on the line.
Yeah. No, you went right on by. I was in town here driving to another board meeting, and I thought I didn't get slowed down some, but it looks like it is. So, you know, I still think that $63–64 million is a good number. I think that if with just a minimal effort and without really having to rely on any additional revenues or anything like that, other than that we would have to incur some small cost of refinancing some of your existing debt that we've already done, you could get maybe to 65 or 66 million. But I think trying to get to 69 or 70 or 73 or any of that stuff, that's going to take a whole different level of restructuring that likely is going to give you probably, you know, best case scenario, a 7 to 10 year window where you can make those payments, but at some point you'll have to do something. So I still think that 63, 64 64 is the good, solid. We feel good about that number. You know, the further we stretch that, the less comfortable we feel and the more accommodations we'll have to make with existing now.
All right, thank you.
So at 3.2 million is included, gives us up to 63 to 64 is what he's saying.
That is correct, but you could clarify that with him.
No,
So when
that's
you,
what I heard,
okay,
yeah.
yep.
Okay, because that was different than what was told us Tuesday night, where we were at 63, 64, and then we can go beyond that. Now we can go up to 64.
Well, you could also remember the distinction there is Joe's talking about everything that Stiefel could provide in the GO and lease purchase. We also have Fund 4 balances. We also have temporary investments. So, you know, those are significant. I mean, you know, a couple million in Fund 4 balances that we could pull, and temporary investments after January of 23, we anticipate to be at 2 million. So, you know, it's really, and we can, you know, keep this conversation going, but you really, it might be more something to look at just the gap. So from wherever all sources, what Joe's going to provide through the GO, through the lease purchase, without any additional borrowing. Now I got to clarify with Joe. Joe, I'm in that conversation. I'm assuming the 6.4 that the board has already authorized, just to clarify. So with what the board has already authorized, and the sources like Fund 4, revenue source or resources in Fund 4, and the temporary investments, you've got a funding gap of about 10 million. If Joe can come back and get us a 3 million, we'll say, I think he's going to be able to do a little more than that. We can get that funding gap down to 7 million. But then you go, okay, is that a hard number on the funding gap? No. That's all projects. So then you got to pull 8 million out. You know, if you pull out the performance gym, you pull out a 2 million-ish if you pull out the softball. So you just got to that, and I think that's Tuesday's conversation is to where exactly those are. Today was trying to kind of get a foothold on what the funding gap was, what additional opportunities Stiefel could bring us, and that's what we're trying to do. And then also, of course, get with Art's presentation to really detail out what each one of those alternates are, so you can really go home and go, okay, I know what it looks like if we have to pull this project or this project or this project. All that to say, back to Alice's point, the preschool is still on. We're saving money for that, you know, and the renovation at the high school for the administrative offices.
Any more questions for Joe? Thank you, Joe, and drive safe.
Yeah, Joe, thank you very much. Thanks for stepping up.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. And again, if the answer is that you want to try to stretch that farther, we're happy to create those scenarios. But we're, you know, our default is to try to be conservative and try to make sure we're not getting out over our skis. So you just keep us posted. But those are the numbers we feel good about. Thank you.
Thanks, Joe.
Good night. Okay.
Yeah, and that went just like I thought. Nice, slow, and you know, as you have other questions in between now and Tuesday, certainly fire those off to me. So at this time, what we got is our bond Inc., and they're going to go over a presentation with those alternates. And in this, Mr. President, you know, what I am recommending tonight is, and it's on the first slide, you can either take action at that slide, or you can see the whole presentation, but the majority of this presentation is devoted to the high school project. The 4-room addition at East is well, I guess the second slide, the title slide and the second slide, but that's what I'm recommending action tonight. And of course the board can do otherwise, but I'm thinking that's why the special board meeting Tuesday is called for the high school. So take that action whenever you want to.
So we're just going to wait to the very end for the action.
Very good.
And you want to take that phone and give it to Art so that Dave can hear better?
Close
or I can move over.
Yeah, come on over.
Whatever.
Hang out with us over here.
Hang out with us.
Okay. Let's see. That's okay. Basically, these slides are all in your packet. Sometimes it's hard to see on the screen. But this bid tab, we have bid tabulations for both the elementary addition, and then the high school on the successive page. But I wanted to just underscore here, Aspire Construction Services is the apparent low bidder, and not apparent, they are the low bid. We have followed up with their references, and they were glowing. At the, see, what was it, 4 references that we talked to? Three. Said they would have them back in a heartbeat on their campuses. And so they appear to be a very strong organization. I think our recommendation would be to move forward with Aspire.
What are the addendums that are missing?
I'm sorry?
There's 3 addendums missing. What are those?
They acknowledged that those addenda were all picked up by the in their bids.
They just didn't have it checked
They
off
didn't have
on the form.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Because what we typically do is you say you acknowledge receipt of each of the addenda as the bidding process goes forward.
Okay.
And they came back to at the end and said, yes, we received all 3 and acknowledged.
Thank you.
So that one is fairly straightforward.
I like that.
Then as we scroll to the bid tabulations for the high school, we have the two low bidders were quite close. I mean, there were 110,000 difference in cost. And we, as Austin pointed out in the meeting the other night, there is one permutation that would make the second lowest bid the lowest bid, in fact. And we are going to see how those lay out. We're going to show you each of those versions with the 3 different alternates in play. We also interviewed both of these organizations this afternoon here in the boardroom. We got to interview their field personnel, the folks that will be in the trailer here out on site, talk a little bit about scheduling, really kind of drilled down to find out if there was anything missing from these bids, if there was any overage excess. We did not do a value engineering exercise. We believe that by Missouri state statutes, we can do that once we've locked in with one of the bidders, but we can't come out of a bid situation and start asking for value engineering from both.
And Art, I'll just to water that down to value engineering is what we talked about last meeting of, is there some squeezing we can do in the project? And this is going to fall kind of to what I explained Tuesday night, right? Yeah, Tuesday night, and that we would already have a contract with that contractor, but there were some opportunities to perhaps squeeze the project a little bit more. And it won't be for $1 million, but there will be some opportunities that we can look at that we'd like to explore with those contractors.
But those savings depend on which of the alternates are chosen as well. I mean, there's a wrinkle every time you turn around, but trying to kind of convey this. Then you guys also asked what is in each of these alternates, and so we really wanted to give you some detail there. So on the next sheet, next slide, you will see option 1 is base bid only. So that is just the high school as it's shown in detail without the performance gym, without the stadium, and without the baseball field. But let me come back and say it would be a natural turf football field, soccer field, and football field, and you would have a natural turf baseball field as well. So you just don't have all of the amenities. You don't have dugouts, press box, and ancillary buildings on either of these. I think on the stadium you don't have the track, you don't have the bleachers, but you have the groundwork laid for future turf to come in. As we go to the next slide, and this one shows basically,
It's at the bottom there. Amy, if you can scroll down to the bottom header, it'll help the part, I think, a little bit.
it'll just tell you, there you go.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay.
It's 1 and 2.
Yeah, that's,
Or 1 and 3.
that's 1 and 3, yes. So that's the finished stadium and the finished turfed infield baseball field. And then it excludes the performance gymnasium. And listed on the side are the pieces that will be included in each of those alternates.
Just making sure you have bathrooms and baseball field.
We do, but you know, that was discussed at one point.
Yeah.
Oh,
Do we
yeah.
do Johnny on the spots just for the season? And that was opted to be done away with. Then, as we flip to the next slide, this is the base bid, and alternate 2 is selected. So that's performance gym only. We're not doing artificial turf stadium, and we're not doing the artificial turf in the baseball field either. But again, you have the natural turf fields in both. And then option 4 is all in, everything. And that is the one that really starts to push the cost over where we can go.
Yeah, if you sneak, if you're not following my guidance and not thinking just gap in funding, it's easy to look down there and you go 63. That's a familiar number. I think that's what, but it will be shown on this next slide. But already be thinking, oh, there's another project, and also there's other costs that are associated to the project, and those they do a good job of hitting those here in just a minute.
So then in the next slide, you see what the dollars are that we still have yet to plug into the costs that were shown before. And the AE fees, the soft costs, and one would say, what's soft costs? Printing, it's the material testing, the surveying work. A lot of this has already been expended, but those are all what we call soft costs, because they're not hard construction costs. And then the
What's
contingent.
AE?
I'm sorry?
What's
Oh,
AE?
architect and engineering,
Okay,
your
that's what I
design
thought, but I
team.
want to make sure.
Yep. And then the contingency, which we had said we typically earmark 5% of the cost of the project, and that will then be the funding source for the new furniture purchase toward the end of the project. We don't expect the soil borings that we've had to date identified some soft soils, but not a lot. So we're going to basically do spot remediation. We won't remediate the whole site. So I don't anticipate that we're going to utilize terribly much of this contingency, but we need to have it there in case. Dr. Berger, any questions or thoughts?
Yeah, I'll shoot it over here to Mr. President, and then also we also need an action item if the board wishes to entertain that tonight, and we'll move back up to that slide to retouch on that before you go on it.
So I'm going to concentrate on base plus alt 1 and alt 3. And then I'm going to do base plus alt 2, because those are the two realistic things. So if I do base plus alt 1 plus alt 3 and add your numbers for AE, soft cost, and contingency, what's that total amount? Do you know that off the top of our head?
Not off the top, but I can get it for you. I would work it off of my sheet here. And that's all the cost on the last slide too, correct?
Yes, correct.
Okay. So essentially all we're doing is pulling out the alt 2 on that scenario, correct?
Oh, Austin, do you want the cost for the ECC and the existing high school? And
Yeah, I'm going to talk about that.
We got to count on it. That makes your funding gap, drops it to 2.4.
And that includes phase 2.
That does.
Okay, so the reason I'm asking that question is, so given what so right now, I see 63 million on your thing there. Okay, so that's the total cost, and right now we have 63 to 64 million available. So how do you come up with a funding gap of negative 2.4 million?
I'm not completely following you, but.
Well, no, you need to follow me, so let me ask the question, okay? Yep. So, Joe said we have 63 to 64 million.
With the additional funding that he would go get.
Okay.
That's what's missing here.
Okay.
So I can plug that in. I don't have that plugged in here yet.
No, but we said base plus alt 1 plus alt 3 is going to cost 63 million and 63,300,000, right?
I think I'm with you. Yeah.
Okay. And right now we say we have 63 to 64.
That's with the 3.2. Is that correct?
No, but we haven't talked about the MOSIP money there.
Well, I know. In my analysis, and that may be a little distracting here, but this is all sources. This is the Fund 4 balances, the temporary investments. That's everything. That's now you can see I've plugged in the $2 million that Joe was talking about. Whatever he was trying to get to 60.
This number, okay. Yeah. But take that 2 million out.
That's where I started. Yep.
Okay. So on your spreadsheet, too bad you can't see it, but on row 5 it says
temporary investments.
And then row 6 says we have 63,281,000 available as revenue.
That's correct.
Okay, and then the cost of alt 1, alt 3, and base, and all those other AE and all that was 65 million. Okay, so that's where you're saying the negative 2.4 million. Okay,
yeah,
I didn't get. Okay.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
Okay,
on that option, you've got to go back to potentially Tuesday night and authorize that borrowing
to make that equal. To make it balance.
That's right.
Okay, now do the same thing, but take out alt 1 and alt 3, yes, and just do the performance check.
You bet.
And then I'm done asking questions.
No, that's very good stuff. So let me, if you'll go around the horn, we'll come back there. Maybe I'll get it. We'll plug the numbers in.
Take your time.
Okay. So we're gonna put the performance gym back in.
But now you gotta go find out which one's the lowest, because now this changes between LCS and Wright. So maybe you can do it later.
That is right, because all mine are all from Wright.
Yeah, because now
7358064
is the performance gym.
Yes.
Thank you. Let me go back over there though.
And we got to plug LCS's numbers in. But the question is, is it about the same deficit, more or less?
No, it's a little more with
it's 2 million more with
option 2. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Are our soft costs for the elementary edition rolled in with this 1.9 or like?
Yes, they are. They are rolled in.
Okay, so the 1.9 million includes architect and engineering, the 5% contingency.
Those soft costs are in the major soft cost number that we're showing.
Okay.
So it's not rolled into the elementary
school.
school.
There's not an additional $1 million that we're not looking at. Okay.
No.
Thank you.
All right. To his point, while he does that, that's my last question. So
yeah, and I tell you, to be more precise, because I can see, the gap funding is one way to look at it, and Austin is absolutely looking at it at the same, just a different view of it. He's looked at the actual number. He wants to see the two numbers that create the. So to ensure that I don't make a mistake on the fly, I will bring that to you Tuesday night. Okay, I will have those numbers for you, and as a hard copy PDF that we don't have to play with a spreadsheet. They'll be there.
Because that was what I thought I was asking the other night for. So. Okay, because basically what's going to come for me, what it might come down to is, okay, it sounds like I'm going to have to make a choice between base, alt 1, alt 3, or base and alt 2. I mean,
it's possible.
I mean, that's, to me, that's kind of where I'm wrapping my head around it right now.
Yeah, me too.
So I'll move on to Alice.
I don't have any good questions.
Mary?
No. I agree that's the choice.
The two scenarios.
And that's going to depend on which who builds the high school, LCS or Wright?
Right, it will change.
It will change. So of the two contractors, which one?
You know, they both have strong reputations. We have not worked with LCS before, but they have come into some projects after we finished and they've done a very good job. Up in O'Fallon, the Justice Center there, and some other projects.
So when you interviewed both of them, neither one had any red flags?
No, they did not.
Okay, and then, okay. Michael?
Remind me, what was the cost for the high school renovation and the renovation of this building? You remember that one? I'm just curious. I could look it up.
Brianna's number's better than mine. Brianna, I'm gonna go look at that sheet.
Sorry.
Maybe, nope, I can pull it.
I thought it was something like that. I can look it up, I guess.
She and I were talking about that earlier, and I actually have that up. So, Brianna, I'm looking at that. There's one point. Wait a minute. It's not. That's not on that sheet that you gave me. I'm sorry.
Well, but think.
We have 1.5, but it didn't have. It didn't have everything in there that we needed. We didn't have the contractor.
2.1 or 2.5.
I can look it up.
Okay, well, here's the issue. But here's the issue. Remember what Art told us Tuesday night? That year over year, you got that 14% they're tacking onto it. So if it's 1.5 tonight, take that, multiply by 1.14, take that product, and multiply by 1.14 again, and then when 2 years move out the bid, that's going to be your.
Oh, yeah.
That's the number you're going to be looking at.
But it's not 2 years we're going out to bid for that. I mean, it'll be sooner than that. But.
Okay, well, but take whatever number they give you, and what Art told us Tuesday night about they're seeing 14% year over year.
Right.
So whatever number it is, add that 14%, and then that's going to be a truer number. And so the question becomes, I'm assuming that you're not assuming 1.6 million or 5 million for phase 2, but you're closer to 2 million on phase 2.
We will probably, as Heidi says, we'll probably be up around 2.1 or so.
Okay, so that's the assumption for that. Okay. Thank you, Heidi.
Sorry.
Anything else, Michael?
Not at the moment, but I suspect I will later.
Aaron?
Can I talk about Aspire for the
Anything you want,
elementary?
Absolutely.
Okay. So I just try to get on their website. Have they done school work?
Yes.
Have they done storm shelter work?
Yes, they have done both. And they cited a number of projects, school projects, and I believe it might be in, you might have it, Chris.
I don't have a packet from them.
Yeah, their packet, which are right, excuse me, similar in size and scope to what we're talking about, dollar value. And that was something we looked at hard.
Okay, their website just shows like True Commercial and O'Fallon, City Halls and Justice Center and stuff, and those are beautiful projects, but they're not storm shelters, so.
Right, but they have.
I'm sure they have done.
They have done those.
Experience.
And we also checked about the protocols that they put in place when managing projects in occupied schools, which is really critical. And they have, I mean, because when you're swinging steel in place, you need to be doing that in an area where it's away from any occupied classrooms. And they have a very strong protocol in that regard, too.
Okay, thank you. As far as the high school, I'm writing my numbers down on paper. So just so I follow along with me, and I know feel like we're asking the same question 20 times. We have $63 million.
Be a good number to settle on.
Okay. We have, what was this 2 million for?
Oh,
2 million for elementary-ish, 1.9. That leaves us 61. 7 million-ish in soft costs, or last slide. That leaves us, and then we have another 2.1 million out for phase 2, right?
That we just established.
It'll be a little higher than that, yeah, because of the work here.
Okay.
But it's not known, but that's the projection.
51-ish million for high school. Does that sound correct?
Yeah, and were you counting Joe's money or not? No. You were not counting Joe's additional borrowing?
I'm not counting any, no, just up from the 63.
Okay.
Okay, just thank you, I appreciate it.
Yep. I'm going to check one thing here. That is correct, because I didn't have that either. Okay. Yeah, that does not include Joe's 2.2 and or whatever that number is that he could grow it to whenever they nail down the projection for it.
And it also doesn't have anything in what we already have in reserves.
It does have the 2 million in reserves for Fund 4.
The 63 does? Okay. Thank you.
So if we take that 2 million out of reserves, what current capital projects are we going to put the kibosh on?
Well, we have 1.7. Remember, you know, this is a lot of planning involved in this. But of course, we knew the project was coming. We've known it for a long time. But the ESSER dollars, recall that we ran a levy in Fund 4 to really replenish the reserves that we would allocate to potentially subsidize the project. So we're taking let's say 2 million. You know, I've got 2.2 down, but let's say 2 million out, 1.7 comes in ESSER dollars this year to replenish Fund 4.
So, Jeremy, you're not concerned about your other day-to-day maintenance issues for Fund 4?
No, for instance, like this summer on the docket is to put new baseball lights at the old high school at like 100-something thousand. So that project probably won't happen because
if we can do all one and all three.
So it just depends on what happens, and then we go from there.
But in terms of like heating and HVAC issues and everything else, you got money. You're going to have money.
I get about $250,000 per year for that stuff. So
yeah, when we came in and FY20's closed out on the SBR, to give you a little idea, maybe this will put things in perspective. We had, I think it was 650,000-ish in Fund 4. I'd have to go back and look. So in that short amount of time, we've increased our balances in Fund 4 in preparation for this. In 2020, you were considering a turf field with $650,000 in Fund 4. Yeah. Now, there was probably a plan to the following year to try to get some money channeled in, but you were running off a much narrower margin then than you are now.
So bottom line here is you don't see from the current, because we got to maintain east, west, and middle still. So you don't see any issues maintaining those buildings.
The last couple of years we've been trying to hit roofs. We did some stuff with west, got a whole new roof. Did a lot of it at middle school this past summer. Like I said, some of our projects coming up this summer, we're back at west for fire alarm, and then we have baseball lights on there and a couple little things at west. But going down the line, it just kind of depends on what is approved, and then we'll reshuffle some of those later years depending on what we get at the new high school and what we phase out at the old high school.
Okay, now, and the other thing that happened Tuesday night, which I think is a little different than what got said tonight, was Art said that the furniture was coming out of the contingency, where you had said Tuesday night it was coming out of, because that's not on a bid, it was coming out of Fund 4.
Right. We have said the same thing over, not to you, I'm sorry. He's hopeful that we're going to use it out of contingency, and I am too, and that's the preferred, but if not, we catch it in Fund 4.
So you don't have any issues there?
Okay. But best case scenario is the contingency money, you know, if we start at 3 million, we have 2,900,000 at the end. Art is probably, even Art isn't that optimistic, and I sure am not. So I've got to make sure I've got money in Fund 4 for $800,000 worth of furniture if we could use our contingency. But even, you know, the contractors during the interview today were optimistic about the contingency. So we definitely focused on that in our interviews to talk about, you know, the unsuitable souls, for example, and the work that we've done to try to get a read on what we might be spending out there. So optimistic, and we'll see. You know,
the soils scare me.
Soils scare me too.
Because we know what we have around here.
Yeah.
That's true.
But I think that bid us when we did the middle school. It was an extra. It was at the time it was $50,000 that we had to.
Oh, I think we can.
We had to remove
we can expect
mix it.
That.
I would think so.
50,000. I would think.
Yeah, but I mean, but that was something at that time that we weren't expecting when we did it, and then so it was something that caught us off guard.
We'll go eyes
So
wide
the
open
fact they
on
did the additional borings,
that helps.
All right. Any other questions for Art, Chris, Eric?
Austin, I have a question.
Sure.
For Art, just roughly figuring, it looks like the higher on alternate 3 than the low bid ICS, and probably 15% higher than the second high bid of LCS. Just looking at the numbers from a distance and not having any background on it, it almost looks like they're not bidding apples to apples there, in my opinion. What's your thoughts on that?
Dave, that was very much a question in our minds, especially with alternate 2 in regards to with regard to Wright Construction. And we did get into a lengthy conversation about that. And it's interesting to note, they actually had goofed on the high side on their bid. Not that it's going to come into play in selection, we have to use what we have, but there is a possibility that we're going to recoup a little bit of money on alternate 2 if it were selected.
I see.
Dave, it's interesting to see. We often see alternates that really are fairly disparate from where the base numbers come in. And oftentimes we find folks trying to sort of play catch up a little bit. They know that the base is what's most important to the school, and they look at the alternates and they say, well, I'm going to raise my profitability on this portion a little bit more and try to gain back a little bit. They won't say it quite like that, but that's been our observation.
I see. Okay.
It's a good
That's
catch.
all I have. Thank
That's
you.
a good catch. Yeah, that's a good question. Anything else? Okay, the recommended action for tonight is that motion to accept the addition to East Elementary School bid from Aspire Construction Services for $1,989,000. That's the recommended action for tonight. Does anybody have any additional questions on that particular recommended action?
Do we know when they would get started?
Mobilization.
I think they're going to mobilize pretty quickly because that's a tight window. They did not say exactly, but they know that they have to be done by and occupiable by end of summer.
By like August of
Yeah, by mid. Actually, we have it. I think it's close to the 1st of August for occupancy because we've got new furniture has to come into those classrooms as well. The other, and I'm sorry, I'm not trying to get off on a tangent, but on the bigger project, both of the contractors said they'd look at starting excavation in January. But I think they'll be getting trailers out pretty quickly. On the elementary, I think it would start hopefully before Christmas.
Thank you.
Anything else on the recommended action tonight? Okay, who wants to make that motion?
I'll make a motion to accept the addition to East Elementary School bid from Aspire Construction Services for $1.989 million.
Seconded.
There's a motion and second. Any more discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? I heard 7-0. Okay, and then just Tuesday night, 6 p.m. is then we'll consider the high school after Dr. Berger, Art, and Joe can do some additional prep. So which comes to what Art said last Tuesday, he needed another week.
I'm sorry, we
No, it's cool.
couldn't get it done before.
No, that's cool.
We want to be careful.
Yes.
All right, well, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
For hanging that long day with you.
Have a good Thanksgiving.
Thanks, you
And
too.
have a good trip.
Thank you very
Brianna,
much.
thank you for your time, and Eric, thank you for your time.
Safe travels.
Yes.
Before we move on to the next agenda item, I really kind of got to jump ship and get some things lined up for tomorrow for me. So I'm going to be exiting the meeting.
All right. Take care of yourself. Thanks, Dave.
Thanks,
See you,
Dave.
Dave.
Thank you.
Buy me a Christmas tree.
I'll say it.
the next item on the agenda, so just make a note that Dave left at 7:44 p.m. Financial report, budget amendment number 1, Dr. Berger.
Yeah, I am not going to say this again because I've been redundant on this, I think, for as long as I've been around. The way we do budget amendments is really, really good. It's explained per line item, and we'll misbox that because she has set us up and set that precedent. That doesn't mean it's not a lot of work to create create that budget amendment, which this is Veronica's, but it really is great. If you have any questions, the explanations are there, but certainly we can expand on anything that you need to with that first budget amendment for our fiscal year, but the inaugural budget amendment for Ms. Klaus.
Well, good evening.
Good evening.
Oh, it's we increased revenue by $825,000. A majority of it was from assessed valuation because of that increasing to 9.8%, so that was helpful. We also included career ladder. That's the amount that the state is going to fund their portion. And then we got a little bit of test to stay money that's done now, so that's all the money we'll receive. We get a few ESSER dollars, ESSER 1 and ESSER 2 that finished out as well. On the expense side, we increased it $547,000. A majority of that was salary and benefits for career ladder. We had about 62 employees participate in that, so that was a good chunk of money. And then we have a few Fund 4 projects that we're gonna get, that we need to include. We got some roof repairs, West fire alarms that need to be paid for this budget year, and then a passenger van. That's all I have.
So the passenger van, that's 50,000 or 40,000.
40, what did we put in here? 50,000. But we're gonna bring it in tighter than that.
Okay, that's fine. So the idea behind buying it is A, we can use it for transportation for kids. B, the people can use that van to go to and from their daily travels. So do we have a payback? Have you any crystal ball how much we're going to save on mileage for?
You know, I did not run an analysis on that. I will tell you that I've utilized passenger vehicles at every district I've served previous. There was one public perception thing that we always thought we benefited from, and that was a school bus running down the road, a 65 passenger school bus running down the road with 3 kids or 7 kids. That just aggravated the heck out of our people. But it was always gray as to whether you could legally carry kids into a passenger vehicle, and we always talked to the people at the former districts that would tell us it was legal. And finally, the legislature came through and cleaned that up, and it is legal, and of course we're covered by music. But yeah, we could run something. It's going to be a cost savings because of passenger vehicle.
But the bottom line is you don't see a long payback period. I mean, you think we're going to recoup that in expenditures?
Yeah, I think
I mean, that's the biggest thing.
But you know, that wasn't the motivator.
Yeah,
and although money's always important, as you guys know, but really it became flexibility in terms of the driver shortage. Yeah. This is going to allow us to, Dr. Way's been harping on our folks about getting those requests in for transportation as early as possible, because we are just running on such a thin line in terms of manpower. Or EchoRide is our partner with transportation. This will give us a little more flexibility with that too. And and then just one more little anecdotal thing. You know, whenever a coach goes off to say a golf tournament, and you're relying on the bus driver, you got the 65 passenger bus out there with 3 or 5 kids on it, and then it's the driver wants to go to McDonald's, or the coach wants to go to McDonald's, and it's coordinating with the driver. It is a mess. So it's going to be a huge benefit to us, and yeah, it's going to offset the cost, but it's really going to make it more feasible to serve our kids.
Now, the person driving the van, will they have to have a CDL?
I do not. Regular driver's license, as long as it's not part of their regular duties.
Okay. And background check and insurance.
Sorry, I had to ask that.
Is that an increase, or the career ladder? I mean, do we expect that about the same expense and income in future years?
Yes. Oh, I'm sorry. This is your report, isn't it? Yes.
I was going to say, I don't know if we have any way of telling, because you don't know what staff's going to move in, what staff's going to move out, who wants to do it.
I was coming from the question of a different angle, and I apologize. I'm not going to step on you anymore. Surprising to me that the Blue Ribbon Commission that was reported by MSBA did officially have career ladder as one of their priorities. I was a little surprised by that for some of those negatives that the career ladder took in terms of perception whenever it was around in the past. So I was taking it from, you know, I was simplifying Heidi's question. It was a little deeper than that, but are we going to have career ladder in the future? Remember, we're going to have career ladder as long as they fund it. And that we've told our folks, when they don't fund it, we're not going to fund it, you know. But, so I'm optimistic they're going to put it in the budget. I think when things get tough, whether that be sooner or later, it'll be one of the first things to go.
Anything else? Do we need an approval for this?
Please.
I need a motion to approve budget amendment number 1, please.
So moved.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any more discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? 6-0. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Veronica.
Thank you.
Appreciate your appreciate your time. Have a good, safe drive home.
Thank you.
All right. So time to evaluate the superintendent. So here's what I was thinking. The Survey Monkey would go out between now and the next board meeting. You would have to have it done by December 28th. And then Alice and I would get together and try to have it done by the first week in January. We get together a workshop to, actually a closed session meeting so that we can go ahead and wordsmith it how we want it. And then after that, we would then, on the January board meeting, offer the superintendent his contract based upon the evaluation. So if you, so Alice, from a scheduling perspective,
I'm fine.
you and I can do the first.
I'm not going anywhere.
Okay, so the first week in January, we could get together, have that done. So when's the first? I gotta look at a calendar here.
Board meeting?
Well, yeah, we gotta find out when we're gonna do a special board meeting here. So the board meeting in January is January the 19th.
Correct.
So we could get together on January the. So if Alice and I got together the 4th or the 5th,
Okay.
then we could meet on the 12th. We can meet on the 12th, and then on the 19th, then have a regular board meeting. So are you all available January 12th?
January? Oh, yeah.
Sure. Okay.
Why
Sure.
I will Zoom or call me.
Okay. Yeah, Mary is going to take her sabbatical. All right, so we'll need Zoom capabilities that night to whomever's setting that up. Okay, so everything will start at 6 p.m. Okay, so you got all that, Amy? You can get it on our calendar, so I appreciate it.
Yeah, you're gonna send one of those out, right? Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Okay, next 2 items are essentially reimbursements for travel to Kansas City for the MSBA conference that we all attended. Mine is first, and so I will be abstaining on this item. So
I'll make a motion that we pay Austin travel reimbursement.
I'll second it.
any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Abstain? 501. The next one is for Mary. Just need a motion to approve travel reimbursement for Mary.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any more discussion? All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? All those who abstain?
Aye.
501 on that. Does anybody want to pull anything from the consent agenda?
I make a motion to approve the consent agenda as it sits.
Second.
There's a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. Please look at employment real quick to make sure you're not related to anybody.
I don't think there's anybody getting employed. Oh, yeah, extra duty.
Okay, assuming you're not related to anybody. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? I heard 6-0. In accordance with the provisions of 610-021 of the revised statutes of Missouri, the R-II Board of Education will meet in closed session in order to discuss 610-021. 14, records which are protected from disclosure by law. Any more questions on that? I need a motion.
So moved.
Second. Any more discussion? Roll call. We'll start with Austin. Yes?
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, I heard 6-0. It's a short closed session tonight, so we're not taking breaks.
Okay.